Welcome. Hello, Facebook. This is Shelly Fan. We have 1 minute before we get started. Welcome to this week's Ask Shelly segment. We are going to get started very soon here. Welcome. This again is your weekly Ask Shelly segment. It's now 12 o'clock. We are going to get started. I hope you guys can see me okay. It feels like it's a little dim in here. I'm in my office today, so I hope you guys can see me well. Again, welcome to this week's Ask Shelly segment. I am your emotional intelligence expert. My name is Shelly Fan. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Ask Shelly Consulting. And this is a firm where a group of very talented, anointed, and skilled psychotherapists come together to provide psychoeducation on behavioral processes, emotional processes, thought processes that take businesses, corporations, ministries, families, and individuals to their next level. We are emotional intelligence experts, and we go out and we train on conflict resolution, communication, how to motivate your team building, staff recruitment, staff retention. We will write your policy and procedures. We will work your human resources program. We will do all of your profiling for your recruitment. We will make sure that the people that you recruit meet the personality types that your business needs. Contact Ask Shelly. I can be reached at www.askshelly.com. There's an option for you to go under contact me, and you could in that section write whatever your needs are. We'll reach out to you, and we will make sure that we create an affordable and effective package for you. I love what I do. I launched in August. I just want to share very quickly about how awesome God has been since then. I have had the opportunity to work with a local business here in Orlando, and basically we conducted something called a liquid therapy session with staff. So it's almost like a happy hour with the staff, and during that happy hour we do fun team building activities. We did a conflict resolution activity where people were able to really identify their conflict personality type. Again, we did some communication stuff. We worked on personality management. We gave them an opportunity to really assess their business and how far or close they were from what Ask Shelly's best business tips are and things that businesses should be doing and incorporating to assure peak performance. And that was fun. I have landed a contract with a law firm, and I have the privilege of conducting a full day retreat with the law firm, and I will be working and teaching strategies on stress management, personality management, how to really engage clients. This is a law firm that specifically that thrives off of wins. That's how they earn their money, through their wins. They don't charge their clients unless they win the case. So making sure that their client engagement is up to par and really understanding the psychology behind that is why they have hired Ask Shelly. And so that is going to be super fun. Again, it's like a one-day boot camp retreat where I will be teaching again on stress management, client engagement, conflict resolution as well. Have another law firm out of state. We are currently negotiating the contract where I will also be conducting a one-day retreat for them. And again, it's going to be all things involved with enhancing emotional intelligence. I absolutely love what I do. I'm really excited about all that God is doing through Ask Shelly. And so I do encourage you to connect with me on www.askshelly.com. You can call the office at 407-350-5070. Every Tuesday, I highlight one question out of the barrage of questions that I get generally on a weekly basis in hopes that the answer is something that will edify you and give you the resources to share with others or that you can apply to your own life. Are you ready for this week's Ask Shelly question? I will take that as a yes. All right, so here we go. Dear Ask Shelly, I am a single mom of an impossible teenager and I need help. I don't know how to parent my out-of-control teen. How can I get some help? I have tried everything I could think of and everything that I have read on. She is literally down to sleeping on a mattress and continues to make poor choices. Please help. Pretty simple. That's the question. Out of control teen, whatever that means, and a parent is saying, I just need some help. And so first and foremost, my philosophy on parenting is this. I love this question because notice she didn't say, fix my daughter, how can I bring her in for an assessment? Because most of the time what happens is that parents are coming to the office, dropping their out of control child off, and then they're going to the gym and they're going to be back in about an hour and a half after we are done fixing their child. I love the fact that after our companies downsize, and this is my private practice, Harmony Mental Health and Behavioral Services, I no longer accept referrals for children and minors without the consent of treatment of their parents. And I say that with a big smile on my face because it's so exciting when you own your own business, you can make those decisions and nobody can tell you otherwise. No, yes, I will treat your 2-year-old. I will treat your 5-year-old. I will treat your 9-year-old. I will treat your 16-year-old. I will treat your 17-year-old angry daughter or angry son, so long as you also consent to get treatment yourself. Why? Because oftentimes we are working with these children, they are building skills, they are learning new ways to communicate, and they're going back to toxic ways of parenting, ineffective ways of parenting that further causes emotional injury. And so now we no longer accept minor referrals unless the caregivers consent to treatment themselves. I love this question because she's not saying, how can I fix her? She's saying, how can I get some help? I want to be able to parent her better. I've tried things that I've read on. I have tried things that I have learned. It's not working. I need help. That I can work with. I can work with that. Why? Because successful children depend on the success of parents. So the emotional success of children, the emotional wellness of children depends on the success and the emotional wellness of the parents. In this particular case, the parent. So I just wanted to quickly share my philosophy on parenting and the fact that it's very important to make sure that we start with the parent. I can definitely build some rapport with that child. I can definitely work on some skill acquisition with that child. And someone says, use the Haitian belt. I'm going to be talking about that Haitian belt in just a little bit. But again, we have to make sure that we are taking the time to work on the parents as well. So she wants some parenting, and I'm going to do this as best as I can in the little bit of time that I have. I kind of like pinpointed just a couple of things out of my skill parenting curriculum that I have, and I have the privilege of being one of the keynote speakers for the National House of Hope. We are currently on a parenting conference tour that started here in Orlando in August. We've been to Advance, North Carolina. We've been to Charlottesville, Virginia. Just last week, I'll be in Miami in a couple of weeks, be in California a couple of weeks after that. It's been really, really super exciting, and I love to see that light bulb just turn on when parents hear how practical it can be. Just a few minor changes can be extremely effective. Okay, so I do not work on training parents to be reactive. I'm not helping the situation if I continue to promote reactivity. So what that would mean is that you're actually addressing the problem in the problem. So an example of that is a parent that says, Ask Shelly, please help me in de-escalating my child's tantrums. That would be reactive. What we want to do is we want to implement parenting methods and skills that prevents the escalation from happening. That is a more productive intervention. Unfortunately, a lot of the times when people come in, they want an immediate answer. They want to right now, help me to fix it right now. And that is not how I roll. You may want to go down the street because Ask Shelly takes a more intense and long-term approach to really correcting some of those ineffective parenting styles. Now, let me say this. There is no such thing as good and bad parenting. There just isn't. It's either effective or ineffective. Effective parenting is parenting that's done with skill and done responsively, not reactively. Reactively is when we're just reacting to emotions. Responsiveness is when you have learned methods, you have learned skills, you have practiced them, you have committed them to memory, you have a tool bank in which to draw from, so you're not pulling out the Haitian belt, but you are withdrawing from wisdom, skill, training. We want parents to be responsive and not reactive. We want parents to be responsive and not reactive. And so when parents come to me and they want help, I can teach you how to de-escalate a tantrum, but we will do that after you have learned all of those parenting skills and methods that prevent the tantrum from even happening. That's important. So my philosophy as a licensed psychotherapist working with parents is to teach them to be responsive and not reactive. If you want a quick answer, go to YouTube. But if you want to learn and you want to develop and you want to be skillful in your parenting, let's talk long term. And another thing that's very important is that there are a few things that I need to assure are in place before we start this journey. Okay? So before we start talking about the out of control tantrums, there are things that we need to make sure are a part of this journey. We got to make sure that there's some foundational factors there before we talk about the stealing and the promiscuity and the cursing and the disrespect and those types of things. I may not get to the heart of that, but I do want to talk about some of those beginning stages in the parenting process because I think it's important for us to hear. Okay. So we talked about a child's success depends on the success of the parent. We talked about that there's no such thing as good or bad parenting. It's either it's either effective or not. Effective parenting is skillful parenting. An example of that is this. The parenting methods that work on my daughter do not work on my son. What's effective for her is ineffective on him. So this is just an example of how parenting has to be effective, okay? So that means that it's child-centered. You're not just using tactics that you use on all of your other 6 or 7 kids. Well, all my other 6 and 7 kids turned out fine, but it's not working on this child, right? So your parenting style has to match the maturity level of the child, their personality type. My daughter never asked why growing up. Mommy said it and it was it. My son, however, always wants to know why. Why? Well, not answering his why is very ineffective. He's a gifted child. He has to understand. The pieces have to fit together. And when they don't fit together, I can't obey because I don't understand it. That's not how my daughter thinks, but I had to adjust my parenting style to address his need, his brain need to know why. So again, remember that that you may want to diversify your parenting style based on the child. It has to be very child specific. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we drive home in this consultation, right? So we are consulting. You have just been invited into the consulting session with this parent. We won't charge her. We'll give her a 20-minute consultation. And if she wants to come back, then we'll start to talk about what you do in the tantrum, okay? All right, here we go. First thing that I need parents to understand is I want them to know their story. It's very important for them to be cognizant of their story. Their story starts with how they were raised. The things that they said to themselves, I will never, ever do with my children, that you may be doing subconsciously or even consciously, because I know I do it, right? And so it's important for parents to know their story, to understand where they came from, the way that they were parented, the things that cause emotional injury, their own emotional injury, even if it doesn't have anything to do with specifically what's going on with or what has happened in their parenting or the way they were parented, but it also includes what's going on in your life right now. So knowing your story, your backstory, how you were raised, those things that worked, those things that didn't work, those things that really hurt, that abandonment that's still there, all that emotional injury, and even the here and now, the stress that you're under, the things that the unmet expectations that you have of life, all those undesired outcomes that are kind of like in your face, all of the above. It's important for parents to really be able to be cognizant of that, to be aware of it, and to be clear on how that might be spilling into the way that they are parenting. So that's really important. Parents have to know their story. What is your story? And so when we talk about that, and they have an opportunity to talk about how they were parented, how they were never touched, how they weren't loved, how parents were just providers, but never really supported the emotional growth. They weren't very vulnerable. Parents who were not transparent, parents who were passive, uninvolved, whatever that is, let's talk about it. Let's talk about your story, Mom. Let's talk about your story, Dad. It has to start there. I know you want to stop the sex. I know you want to stop the disobedience. I know you want to stop the verbal outbursts, but let's talk about your story. And that's where I start, talking about your story. The next thing is I really assess where parents are at with their hope, because parents have to be the one that understand that the now is not your next. Hope is all about understanding that this is just a chapter. It's not the end of the story. And so we want the parent to understand that you cannot lose sight of your child's next. Out of all people, when the teacher is telling you that your child has a learning disability, you have to be the one to see your child as the next president of the United States of America. When the cop comes to your home and says your child is in jail, you have to be the one to say that while this is now, my child is a pastor and is anointed and is going to be a force to be reckoned with for the kingdom. We as parents have to understand that we cannot lose sight of our children's next. We cannot lose sight of our children's next, so that when people start talking things over your children that don't align with what you know is their next, then you can declare what you see as next. But when parents lose sight of the next, they lose hope. And when you lose hope, you lose patience. And when you lose patience, you become emotional. And when you become emotional, you become reactive. And you have lost control. And if you cannot control your emotions, you will not be able to control your children. Know your story. We assess where the hope is. And then we have to also make sure that parents are open to learn. We have to make sure that parents are open to learn. How are you here in my office paying $145 an hour and everything that I'm suggesting you're saying you already did? Oh, or if that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I know my son, and that's not going to work. Well, according to your son, you don't know him. According to your son, you don't know him. According to your son, if he asked you his favorite color, you wouldn't know. According to your son, if I asked you the last time he cried, you wouldn't know. According to your son, he can't trust you. So do you really know your son that well to know that what I am suggesting won't work? Why are you here? Now, I am very, very respectful as a provider to make sure that I'm not coming in and saying good, bad, right, wrong, especially when I'm in someone's house. I try to assess their cultural background, the things that they are doing that's working. I want to make sure that I'm there to edify and not say, this is all wrong or this is all right. I'm very, very sensitive to culture. I'm very sensitive to where parents are at. I'm very sensitive to their goals. I want to get in the passenger side. I don't want to drive the process. But let me tell you, if you are not open to learning, then you are not ready to parent your child. Because it's all about learning new information. Because if you don't learn new information, your brain is going to continue to do the same things. As a matter of fact, you will end up doing what you said you would never do, because your brain is going to go back to what it knows. It's going to go back to that learned behavior, all those toxic connections, all the things that you saw when when you were living in a house where it always sounded like everybody was yelling and screaming at each other, and all of a sudden you're doing that. Why? Because you're defaulting to those learned behaviors, those things that are just connected in you. Because those things, those connections cannot be amended or recoded without new information. The brain does not shift without new information. Change does not happen without new information and the application of that new information. So not only do I want you to take the packet home, not only do I want you to hear me, I need you to go home and apply it. Where are those sheets? I asked you to, every time you saw that every time he disrespected you, I wanted you to write down exactly what happened before and after. Help me help you. Be in the position to be willing to learn. Don't go to the gym while I'm sitting with Johnny. Why don't you sit here? You come to the office every week talking about, I don't know how you get Janet to do that. I don't know how you get Bob to do that. Well, maybe if you didn't go to the gym during session, you would have learned how. So parents have to be willing to learn new information. All right. So we have to make sure, we're still in this consultation, we have to make sure that we have talked about the parent story. We have to talk about this single mom story. We have to talk about her backstory, how she was raised, what worked, what didn't work. We need to talk about her current stressors, unmet expectations, assess disappointment, all of those things, because we have to make sure that we're providing support for that, because we need the parent to be the best version of themselves, to expect the best version of their children. We want to see the best in our kids with our brokenness. We want to see the best in our children in our brokenness. You want to see your child rise to the top when for the past 5 to 7 years, the child has watched you neglect yourself. What's the message there? Lessons are learned primarily by what children see. And so it's important to address that injury, mom. It's important to address the fact that your whole entire life has been integrated into your child's life. You've lost yourself in your child's life. What are those lessons? So again, knowing your story. Then it's important to make sure that we build hope. What do you see in your child? What is your child's next? Make sure that we're focusing on next, to give the parent hope that this is just a chapter in a very, very amazing story. What is your child's next? So building hope in that parent, and making sure that the parent is open to learn. And so hopefully by this time, you have established a relationship with the parents, right? So there's that trust there. There's that therapeutic alliance there. And so now you're open to learn because you trust me. You trust me. You trust what I'm saying. We have this alliance, and now you're open to learn. There's a couple of things that have to be in place before I start to teach parents on how to take that tantrum from a 10 to a 0. Okay, there are certain things that need to be done, because it would be easier for me as a provider to teach you how to take that tantrum down to a 4. It would be easier for me to say, this is how you get the disrespect to decrease. But there are some foundational things that we have to make sure are there. And so a lot of times parents are like, I'm just not coming back, because they wanted an immediate answer. You want an immediate answer for the mess that it's taken you 20, 15, 11 years to cause? You want to come to my office and get out of a 60, 75-minute session, an immediate answer for mess that has been caused over the past 10 to 11 years. And not only mess that you caused, it could be life. Dad wasn't there. Abuse, molestation, whatever those things are that's causing so much anger, that's manifesting in these behavioral issues, whatever that is, we need parents to be patient with the process. So these are the things that need to be in place. Number 1, now that you told me about how horrible your child is and all the horrible things that the child has done, I'm going to ask you to tell me what your quality time looks like with your child. That's very, very important. I need to know what your quality time is. We're not going to touch the maladaptive behavior right now. We're not going to talk about all those toxic behaviors that are driving you nuts. I need to know what your quality time is like with your children, with your child, okay? She doesn't say what the child's name is, so let's call the child Scott. I need to know what your quality time is like with Scott. And in previous FaceTimes, in previous lives, I have taught on what quality time is. Quality time is 3 types of contact happening at once. Those 3 contacts is eye contact, skin contact, and verbal contact happening at one time. Mom, I need to know, how many times a week are you sitting with Scott, assuring that you're very intentional about these 3 forms of contact happening, unconditional? We have to stop withholding love and quality from our children when we're mad at them. And that's very difficult. Very difficult to say, I love you. You are going to be an amazing adult. I believe in you. Those words are deep. How many times have you as a parent told your children, I believe in you. I believe in you. And so again, what is that quality time? Some parents, when they have multiple children, they say that our quality time. No, I'm talking about one-on-one. Mom, that one-on-one time with Scott, your one-on-one time with Janet, and I know it's hard because you're a single mom, but we got to make it work. We got to make it happen. We need one-on-one time between you and Scott where the other siblings are not involved and these 3 forms of contact happening. And what's reasonable in your schedule? How often can we get this happening? So I assess quality time. That is a parent and their child, how many times a week they are engaging in these 3 forms of contact happening at one time, no distractions, one-on-one, because that forms attachment. It is a brain function. It ignites areas in the brain that promote attachment between a parent and a child. So when that is lacking and that's deficient, we work on that. But what about the tantrums? It's okay. We'll get there because you're going to be here for a little bit. Probably going to be here for about 12 weeks, maybe a little bit more. We'll get there. But let's first work on quality time. What's reasonable? Is twice a week reasonable? Okay. Is Saturday morning good? Good. What's another? Thursday night? Okay. So Thursday night and Saturday morning are Scott's time. 1 hour, no interruptions. Even if he cursed you out right before, we're going to make sure that that quality time is not conditional on his behavior. Okay? It's important to assess quality before we start teaching how to address problem behavior. The next thing that we want to make sure is that parents understand this. My business partner, Robin Williams, teaches on this concept of what you attend to will continue. We've talked about it on previous lives. What you attend to will continue. So wives, when you are always focusing on the things that your husband may be doing that are foolish, you will continue to get a fool. If you address and focus and attend to the things that those king behaviors, the more that you address that, the more that you will get the behaviors of a king. Men, same thing for your wives. What you attend to will continue. What you attend to will continue. So often as parents, we react when those negative things happen. So if there's any truth to what you attend to will continue, that means that the more that you're attending to the negative, the more it will happen. It's almost like life. The more you attend to all those undesired outcomes that pull you down, the more undesired outcomes will continue to be attracted to your life. What you attend to will continue. So we want parents to take some time, and for a little bit, we want you to focus on all of the things that you want to see increase. And we also want you to attend to, affirm, and reinforce your child when he is not engaging in what you don't want him to do. So lots of love, lots of hugs, lots of words of affirmation, speaking positivity over his life. What you attend to will continue, making sure that you're putting more attention, more attending to the great things that, and they don't have to be extraordinary things. They just need to not be the things that you don't want to see. So when he's sitting there watching TV, reinforce that. When he just said hi to you and was standing next to you, reinforce that. Scott, I love when you're home. It makes me feel so good when you're home and when you're being helpful. Thank you so much. Just be, and it may be weird and he may look at you like, what is going on, Mom? But you're going to keep doing it no matter how weird it feels. What you attend to will continue. So we want Mom to attend to all those great things. We're going to be very, very mindful of being verbally affirming. We want to make sure that we're attending to the great things that Scott is doing. We are going to affirm him when he's not engaging in all those horrible things that you don't like. We're engaging, we're attending, we're reinforcing, we are affirming. What you attend to will continue. The next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that Mom understands the importance of using Scott's name in positive context. Because often when we use the names of our children, we are doing it when we are upset, right? Scott, you didn't wash the dishes. Scott, you didn't fold the clothes. Scott, you didn't take the trash out. But we tend to not say Scott's name when we're saying things like, I love you. We just say, I love you, or I'm proud of you, and not necessarily, I love you, Scott. I'm proud of you, Scott. So we want to start to aligning just his name with the great things that we are affirming and rewarding. All right. So we talked about quality time. We talked about the use of the name. We talked about what you attend to will continue. So we want to switch our attention to those amazing things. And now I want us to talk about punishment versus discipline. It's very important that parents understand that behavioral issues, those outbursts, those maladaptive behaviors can always be tied to a skill deficit. Okay? So behavioral issues can almost always be tied to a skill deficit. Give you an example. Scott punches the wall when he gets angry. What's the skill deficit? What's the skill deficit? Tell me. A child who puts his fist through the wall when he's angry. The skill deficit is mood regulation, the inability to regulate mood, the inability to handle and cope with undesired triggers, right? The inability to take emotions and change them into words. Those are skill deficits. So we need to teach Scott how to respond, not react, to respond to triggers to decrease the anger outbursts. Behavioral issues can always be tied to a skill deficit. What are kids learning? Because the more that they learn, the better their behavior will be. And so I love this. The root of the word discipline is disciple. We have to make sure that our relationship with our children is that of discipleship. A disciple, where we are teaching and we are learning. There is a training that my business partner does. This is Robin Williams. She is the best board certified behavior analyst, the best in this region and probably beyond. She's great. And there's a slide in one of her trainings and it says, when a child doesn't know how to do math, we teach. When a child can't read, we teach. When a child can't tie his or her shoelaces, we teach. But when a child does not know how to behave, we punish. What's that? When a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach. There is no successful behavioral program or parenting method that will be successful without teaching. Let me give you an example. When parents are using fear-based tactics to get what they consider good behavior, that child's going to go to college and lose his or her mind. Why? Because they weren't learning. They were just responding to fear, but they weren't learning any new information. They just learned how to act like what you were expecting because of fear. When you are operating in fear-based techniques, our brains cannot learn when our emotions are heightened as how they are when we are in a state of fear. We go into survival mode, fight, flight, freeze. There's no learning happening in that setting, in that emotional state. So we have to make sure that we are not punishing children, but we are disciplining them, making sure that they are learning through the parental methods that we are choosing. And so that Haitian belt that someone just talked about a little bit earlier in the live, that Haitian belt promotes fear. And there is no learning that can happen in that fearful place, that fearful state. So we want to teach behavioral issues can almost always be tied to a skill deficit. So we have to make sure that we have pinpointed what those skill deficits are, and we are teaching, rewarding, reinforcing. We want Scott to be able to say, I'm angry, instead of punching the wall. We want Scott to say, I feel betrayed. I feel lonely. I want your attention, Mom. We want to be able to help Scott to verbalize those things that are causing him to just blow up. And that is a skill. Being able to talk about your emotions is a skill. There are grown folks, doctors, lawyers, high achievers that can't do that. That cannot take their emotions and turn them into words. They can't. They don't know how to mood regulate. They don't know how to take their anxiety from a 10 to a 4. Grown folks, people that we think got it made in their Mercedes, having a panic attack in your Mercedes because you have not learned the skill to regulate your mood. So behavioral issues, those manifestations that cause people to say, I have had it, can always be tied to a skill deficit. So parents, what are you teaching? What are you being intentional about teaching? Because remember, our kids are watching. They are watching. And what they're seeing are the most powerful lessons for their future, for their now and for their next. So, having said that, Madam who wrote about, please help me with my teen, I want to be able to partner with you. You can reach me at www.askshelley.com. It's very important for you to remember there's no such thing as good or bad parenting. Is either effective or not. And there's something about your parenting that's ineffective because you're dealing with these behavioral issues. And we can address that. We need to know your story. We need to rebuild your hope. We want to make sure that you're willing to learn. We got to get that quality time in there. We've got to make sure that you're using Scott's name in sentences that align him with being good. We want to just take that idea out that Scott is bad. This is what I do. I'm just a bad kid. We want to come against those negative thought processes, that possible self-talk that most kids have. So we want to use his name in rewarding context, reinforcing context, positive context. We want to make sure that you are attending to more of the positive things, that you are attending to him when that maladaptive stuff is not happening. What you attend to will continue. So we're going to make sure that we turn your attention. We're going to focus on disciplining and not punishing. That means that we're going to highlight all of these skill deficits that Scott has, and we're going to teach, and reinforce. We're going to teach and reinforce. We're going to put counseling in place to empower him to use his words. He's going to learn how to take his anger to a different level. We're going to teach him how to dominion over his emotions. And Mom, you're going to learn while he's learning. We're going to address that emotional injury, and that is what parenting is about. The success of children depends on the success of our parents. That's what it's about. Multi-generational interventions. And I encourage any and every change agent within the sound of my voice to embrace a multi-generational approach when you are working with children. This is our next generation, and they are hurting, and they need us. And so I hope that some of what I talked about today was helpful for you. I can do this for about 8 hours. My Skill Parenting 101 is a 4-hour workshop. I would love to come to your church or to your home, or you can come to my office so I could teach it. It's amazing, and it's important for us to maximize what we're doing in raising our children. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Ask Shelley segment. I can be reached at www.askshelley.com. Look out for my blog that's going to be coming out on October 5th called F It. F It. That's going to be my blog, October 5th. F It. So make sure you go to my site on October 5th and read up on that blog. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love your feedback. Thank you for supporting me every Tuesday. Thank you for your shares. I appreciate you all. Till next time.